This is Wednesday, April 5, 2023. Your Clark County Council has completed two work sessions, one on population projections and another on annual reviews and dockets. And we now move into council time, beginning with public comment. And this public comment is on agenda items only. The agenda meaning the council time agenda that is before us, no other agenda. Staff, do you see any members of the public who wish to testify?
And Chair, just before we do public comment, if I can ask the council to amend the agenda this morning.
Please go ahead.
I would like to add 3.3 under new business. It's a letter regarding 179th. And then the second is under executive session, 7.3, pending litigation for 5 minutes.
And with those two additions, are there any objections or comments from council? And hearing none, those two items are added. Thank you, County Manager. So now we go to the public comment. Staff, do you see any that members of the public who wish to testify?
Chair, we have one individual online.
Okay.
Caller, please go ahead and state your name and your comments.
Hi, I'm a little out of breath. This is Kimberly Goheen-Elvin, my citizen of Clark County. Running out of cards here on my phone, notes all over, and just trying to enjoy life here. The reconfiguration on 179th Street and I-5, and I've been listening, and I'm just begging citizens to listen, and I'm actually going to try to get a letter out to all Clark County citizens. We don't want you to take our land anymore. There's just too much. It's too deep. It's too complicated. And, but yet the system, I'll call it, the administration, we could say, just carries on and bulldozes. So I just want to wake up, we the people, the citizens in Clark County, to listen and go back to all of the policies and things that you guys are changing left and right on the growth management plan. We've got to go under the Biden administration and what he's doing to take down America. And folks, you know, you'd think I'd have it all worded by now since I've been trying to be a patriot for 3 years now. I kicked myself in the butt for not waking up 40 years ago, but I was raising children like people are right now. So being a senior citizen, I do have some life adventures, and I must say that you people must look at this with a constitutional lens and stop this one world order, take over socialism, Marxism, whatever we want to call it. Whatever the Biden administration has going, you guys need to turn it and look at through the constitutional lens that we the people voted for you to do. Now, I wasn't at the beginning of the meeting. I actually forgot about it. I wish I didn't, but there we go. You know, I'm a realist and I understand. So I don't know who's there. I don't know who's not there. I'm hoping that those, even if they're just a little bit sniffly and don't want to be around people, can still be on Zoom. You have to represent us, but through a constitution lens. And you guys your brains are going, and well, we've switched the Constitution and people don't know what's going on and this and that. They've been asleep for 3 years. That's been a good thing. Well, the public is going to wake up. Think about that tonight at your dinner table, wherever you are, whoever you converse with. You guys, this is like a wicked web down there. And it says it right on the Vancouver Council and your council on the website that this is for the people.
Your time has concluded, ma'am. Thank you for your testimony. Staff, is there anyone else who wishes to testify?
No, we have no one else, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We turn now to old business. Is there a motion for approval of the minutes of March 29?
Motion to approve.
Second,
Second.
discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Those
Aye.
opposed, nay. Thank you. It's unanimously passed. New business, item 3.1. We were asked to give a recommendation on Associate Development Organization from DOC. And it seemed that since the Columbia River Economic Council has been our representative there, that they might wish to speak. And Jennifer, I don't see you. Are you in the hearing room? And would you like to come forward and speak?
Hello, Chair Bowerman. Yes, I'm seated right in front of the council row, but not at the dais. So I'm happy to be
Wonderful.
joining County Council this morning.
And welcome. You
All
may
right,
go
okay,
right
thanks.
ahead.
All right. Well, thank you, County Councilors. It's been a little while since we've had the opportunity to sit down together and give a comprehensive CRDC update. So I just wanted to begin at the beginning, and we'll move swiftly. CRDC has been serving this is our 41st year with Legacy Relationships, founded as a nonprofit 501c4 organization to bring public and private sector stakeholders together to find good solutions for business and to spur the economy. And I think that balance of public and private sector is really something that sets us apart in our work and our approach, and how the organization continues to persist as a driving faction in our community. We represent 145 public and private sector investors in the community and 48 public-private sector board members. Our executive committee is 22, and we host underneath that a number of expert committees in Lands for Jobs, in what we call our Support People Committee, which looks at the interface between skills that people are emerging into the workforce with and what employers say they need to be able to grow and thrive, as well as internal committees, finance, investor relations, policy committee, and other task forces as needed. So we create a forum for experts in our community to come together and help set and reinforce the agenda for how we grow. And in 2017, the 2018 to 2023 Comprehensive Economic Development Plan for Clark County was adopted. CRDC is not the sole implementer of that plan, but we are the hub and the facilitator of how that plan comes to bear. So over 200 stakeholders rallied together, brought their voices to the table, and helped outline the 2018-2023 Clark County Comprehensive Economic Development Plan. And that predated my arrival to CRDC. So this was something that community members adopted, and then I arrived to be able to help implement. Underneath that plan, there are identified 3 primary goals: build the existing business base, support people, and create place. And then under those 3 goals are sub-goals that include becoming an expert in industry competencies, fostering skills development, promoting a social and equitably just society, investing in shovel-ready land, or facilitating shovel-ready land development so that we can facilitate more business activity. And I can provide the overall summary breakdown of those plans. But in 2023, it's a reset year for us, and I think the timing is really fortuitous also as we look at comp planning, because we're operating in a rapidly changing environment. We all saw the growth numbers. For our CRDC luncheon on April 26th, we'll also highlight a lot of data that talks about the type of growth that we're recognizing and what that means for economic development, what that means vis-a-vis our land footprint, and how we can continue to grow and thrive. And economic development used to be a narrative where if you had available land and you had reasonably priced power and people could find a home, that a company could just pick a spot on a map and move there and employees would move to the job. And we're looking at a pretty significant paradigm shift over the last couple of decades, and then amplified throughout the COVID experience, the pandemic experience, where companies' number one criteria for where to cite a company, at least in domestic searches, is, are there enough people and skilled people to help my company grow in the ways that we would like to see it grow? What are the tools that cultivate that workforce pipeline? And will I be landing in an inclusive community where my team members feel like they can thrive? So I'll pause just for a moment there. If we think about the vision of Clark County into the future, 2023 is really a time for us to call all the voices to the table. When I arrived in 2019, there were people who said, well, I didn't really like that part of the last 5-year plan. And so now is really the opportunity for all people to rally back around the table and share the parts that they do like and the parts that they don't like, and invite CREDC to be an interlocutor for this vision for the community growth that matches up with community goals. I visited with council before as a representative of CREDC to talk a lot about land use policy and what we're seeing. So in the last 3 years, the CREDC has been able to help facilitate over $1 billion in capital expenditure and pledged expenditure in our Clark County footprint. We have helped create or retain around 3,750 jobs, and that has been the culmination of 33 project wins. And I look at those numbers, and those are nice numbers. When we look at the comp planning numbers, right, there are a lot more jobs that we aspire to bring into Clark County. And being able to observe and shape how CREDC interacts with companies, there are definitely some notes I can share. So there would have been opportunities for CREDC to help yield multiple billions of dollars of jobs were it the case that we had an infinite land footprint of shovel-ready sites. And where we are right now in this phase of the Growth Management Act planning process, we know that there are limited sites and limited acreage, and of the industrial land footprint that still exists, a lot of those sites would require a lot of infrastructure dollars to bring utilities to. They would require some semblance of wetlands mitigation. And quite honestly, there's land in the industrial land footprint that really shouldn't be there. How it got there, who knows, many decades ago, but it's land that's unlikely to ever convert. So as you think about CREDC, we all get excited about facilitating wins and the relationships that we have with companies to drive jobs here, but also think of CREDC as an engine for analyzing and being a voice for companies that don't exist here yet. Either there's a company that's here that may expand one day, but it may be 5 or 10 years from now, and they don't know what that expansion footprint will look like. Or it could be a company that we're trying to attract here, and there's no voice or advocate for those companies when it comes to some of the planning conversations that we all share. So that is one of the roles that we play is trying to help paint a picture of where there's opportunity and where there are limitations. And we did provide testimony and a white paper with some case study and analysis last spring in advance of the vacant buildable lands model report being submitted up to the state. I'm happy to recirculate that to County Manager Otto for the council to take a look at again. But one of the things we note about the industrial land footprint is that there is land that's unlikely to ever convert, but it's still saying that that land will help us create this many jobs. And so there's an opportunity for us to visit what that footprint looks like, why it says that, and are there opportunities to find solutions that would have actual viable land with us to work with more. From the jobs perspective standpoint, of the companies that we're attracting, And I think this is pervasive across the U.S., so not unique to Clark County. But as we're attracting companies, they're all hungry for all levels of skilled workers. And so as we think about jobs creation, we also have to think about how are we building the pipeline? How are we inviting the young people growing up here to stay? And how are we being a magnet for younger generations to want to move to Clark County and to be able to help us be an engine for industry? And I don't want to give up too much of the data because we will launch this during our luncheon, but the fastest growing age groups in the Clark County population from 2016 to 2021, which roughly aligns with the last strategic plan cycle, the fastest growing age groups are age groups 65 to 74, 75 to 84, and 85 plus. And they're growing at respectively 24.2, 16.3, and 16.9%. The sort of typical economic developer age categorization for age groups that are helping drive economic growth is the 20 to 44 age group, which we're seeing growth in that age group that's faster than the regional average at 12.6%, but it's a fraction of where we're seeing population growth across other age groups. And in the kiddos segment, the under 5 and 9 to 10, we're seeing negative growth. So families with little kids are either moving away, or right, I think that's the upshot there. People with little bitty kids are moving away. So we could dissect that in a bunch of different ways, but I wanted to share that in 2020, we did a soft launch of a website. It's called Just North, and it's intended to be a landing page both for our employers, but also for young people to see the imagery, to learn and hear from other younger people who are thriving in our community. And we work with our companies, with a lot of manufacturing sector companies, to be able to share with their employees if they're trying to relocate people to the region and want to paint a panorama of what that looks like. You can read about that on the Just North webpage. So it talks about each of the communities. I know Vancouver gets a lot of attention, but we highlight what it's like to live in Battleground, in Camas, in Washougal, in Ridgefield, as well as in Vancouver. We highlight different types of job opportunities in industry, and then we also showcase 5 or 6 different profiles and testimonials of younger people who either grew up here and decided to stay, or who have moved here and are choosing to grow their careers here. We have, alongside that, a Instagram social media platform. And so we're meeting people where they're active in on their digital media. And we're exploring the capacity of being able to invest in some AI tools that would allow us to target different markets where we are seeing a lot of higher wage, higher skilled, younger population demographic growth, to say, hey, the Pacific Northwest is a great place to land and grow your career. And if you think about a county like San Diego County, they are cultivating around 7,000 STEM graduates a year. And so they're a natural magnet for younger people who are in these higher wage, higher skilled jobs in tech and in bioscience. But the Pacific Northwest has so much to offer also in terms of our natural resource management, in terms of the type of lifestyle that younger people want to subscribe to, and different, power and utilities profiles that I think we need to continue to represent. So with our Support People Committee, we will be continuing to work on what are the tools that we have to be able to facilitate population growth and workforce growth and activation in the areas that will help us continue to attract more jobs. But there are a lot of hungry employers out there, and anyone who's tried to hire knows that it's a really competitive marketplace. So how do we reinforce Clark County as a magnet? reading the signs of the national and regional real estate markets, you know, and seeing the land footprint profile change, we really have the opportunity and have also been on our own accord developing a number of tools for prospecting on the national and international level. So we, looking at Class A office space specifically, know that there is, at least in Clark County, there's a fairly low vacancy rate. And then our industrial vacancy rate is also very low. So what types of companies can we prospect that would be ones that we can actually land based on our land footprint? And we've developed a profile that takes a look at a company's CapEx, their growth trajectory over the last 5 years, and their number of employees and the predictable scaling of their employees, so that we're doing direct C-suite outreach to these companies across the nation. And what we found in our initial 3 quarters of campaign last year is that we're driving people to our website, and that they're spending over 30% more time on our website, which in internet timeline is a really long time, if you think about people kind of having a shorter attention span and clicking through. So we know we're getting traction, and we'll continue to work and cultivate those relationships. We're activating particularly in advance of our trade show outreach, so that we can land the types of meetings that will be more influential, and then be able to also invite foreign direct investors and visitors to town around these trade show type rallying events. Last year, we hosted just 3 foreign direct investors, 2 from Asia and 1 from Europe, but all representing hundreds of jobs of prospective investment here in Clark County. Last year, we stood up a business accelerator pilot with money that we fundraised from the Small Business Administration. And that's an area for entrepreneurial growth and creative economy that we're hearing a lot from the state and region as areas where we can facilitate jobs growth. And the Business Accelerator pilot in its initial year served 9 scalable traded sector entrepreneurs. So it's different than, for example, the Greater Vancouver Chamber of Commerce POD program, which is teaching companies how to get registered, what type of classification of company they would designate themselves as. This is really looking at existing entrepreneurs and the capacity to scale in a way that's feeding traded sector economy. And so that's a program we have applied back to SBA to solicit some additional funds to be able to support and to be able to stoke that entrepreneurial ecosystem. I spoke a little bit already about the Lands for Jobs inventory, but I can provide some numbers behind it. In 2021, I reported that 11 of 13 larger projects were ones that we were not able to be responsive to. Those aren't the projects that CREDC is seeking out. We're seeking out the types of projects that we know that we realistically can land. But from the State Department of Commerce and also from partners at Greater Portland, Inc., we get project referrals. And so in 2021, we had 11 of 13 larger scale projects. Each represented an average of 221 jobs created and an average acreage ask of 73.75 acres. In this past year, we extracted 2 mega projects, and the average project that was not fit for our reply was an ask of 258 acres and would have created 796 jobs and roughly $1.3 billion in capital investment. So a sizable increase, not totally surprising, owing to the the Inflation Reduction Act and the CHIPS and Science Act, where companies have paused a little bit and some of the bigger companies are striving to make moves that align with the federal investment.
Well, Jennifer, I'm going to suggest that maybe we move on at this point. It is absolutely delightful to hear the diversity of and the magnitude of things that CREDC has going on. And as president of that organization, congratulations to you for accomplishing that. And I believe that we have, as a council now, what we need to know in order to make a recommendation on the Associate Development Organization from DOC. And if we have further questions, one way to get at them is by communicating with Counselor Young, who is our liaison to CREDC. And if there's any last sentence that you wish to add, please do so. Otherwise, I'm just going to give you a huge thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity to serve. We're at an amazingly pivotal point in our county's development, and look forward to the opportunity to channel CREDC's momentum and continue to leverage support with an ROI of $54 for every dollar invested. Thank you.
Don't leave.
Okay.
That's impressive.
Yeah, Madam Chair, I do have, and I think some of my fellow councilors have some questions as well. And I appreciate so much that you've sat and waited so long, and it's good to see you. And it's been way too long since we last met. And pretty much I'm going to kind of rehash my comments and questions from years ago when you first sat in front of us. And back then, we didn't have an economic development advisor for the council. The position was vacant. It's 4 years later. We still have that position vacant. And so you fulfill that role to some extent for the council. It's very important. Where I find the friction point is, you know, you have a lot of masters, you have a lot of businesses that, entities that rely on your services, and you do great work for the county. So I appreciate all that. You know, my thrust had been and remains recruitment. You know, we have a lot of DOD dollars in the county, and I'd like to amplify that, not only in shipbuilding, but aviation. We don't have a big Boeing presence, but in our ports, we do have embedded some really sophisticated, specific businesses that are doing high-level work for SOCOM and other DOD entities. We have a railroad. We have lots of land that we could rezone. I'm hoping we do rezone to industrial, so we have land available when businesses come to you. But the big friction point is they come to you, we hear rumors of it, and then there's a wall between us. So we don't have an opportunity to work directly with that potential employer to say, how can we induce you to come? How can we create infrastructures that will entice you? How do we make land available for you? You know, the railroad is a prime example, and we talked about this years ago when we kept hearing rumors of these different huge employers potentially looking at the county. And the reason why I say it is because if we knew who they were and we could start working with them, it would give us great energy to move the executive to and getting our GIS service to rezone the land and get that process. We just had dockets this morning on some specific requests. So it's kind of a chicken and egg. We need the information in order to move forward, to have that emotive force to develop our jobs for the county. And then the other part of it is our schools. Okay, we know we need to work with our colleges and universities, and even for vocational training. If we knew who was interested, we could put the word out and work with our colleges and say, hey, you need to produce more of this skill set because it's going to bring this employer to this county. So it's a gap as far as I can see. You know, recruitment, and because building jobs will solve so many of our problems here in the county, from river crossings, you name it, congestion. You know, having family wage jobs is crucial to us. So I just am trying to proselytize you again because we don't have a direct plug-in other than our liaison through CREDC, but I haven't seen anything that we can operationalize over the years I haven't just seen anything that was really actionable for us to move forward for economic development. So with that, I'm just hoping you can please comment, but hoping for continued focus for Clark County, for the county in particular as one of your contributors, and just see how we can up our game as far as recruiting. Thank you.
Yeah, well, I'm delighted that you mentioned the aerospace industry. Around 2020, and it's now public, so I'm at liberty to share, CRDC received, or we're connected with a company called UPC. They're in the aerospace industry with high value add outputs. And on June 1, they'll have their groundbreaking. And I think this is an interesting illustration because this is a company that was interested in Clark County. You know, we helped them situate with the Port of Kamis-Washougal, build out their warehouse and their production facility and office space. And they're now at a capacity where they will ramp up initially with 60 jobs, then 100 jobs. And I think those are the types of higher wage, higher skilled technical manufacturing jobs that are really exciting. But also an example of this timeline of company digestion, and it takes sometimes longer stints to be able to realize a company vision. What I can tell you is, you know, companies are reluctant often with us to share information, and as soon as we reach out to the county, their inquiry becomes public record. And so that is definitely something that is difficult to surmount. But there are some ways that we can create profiles or share profiles for what we're seeing. And that does get reported out to our board and executive committee. But you know, that is something that we can share with the council at large because there are some definite trends. So roughly 70 to 80% of our business development pipeline at any given snapshot in time is in the manufacturing space. A lot of them are high value add manufacturers that align well with the computers and science chips industry. And then also with metal fabrication and technology enhanced production industry. One of the ways that we work directly with the county and county staff, even under project names, is with the permitting department and continuing to streamline and align timelines. I know there was a metal fabricator down on Fourth Plain that was contemplating, should I move to Idaho? Should I move to Cowlitz County? And we said, no, you need to stay in Clark County. Your people are here. This is a great place to do business. And he found, with our help coordinating some land in unincorporated, and the county staff with CRDC working as an ombudsman was able to help facilitate site permitting and building permitting that were concurrent, that helped that manufacturer be able to land and grow his footprint here. And so those are some of the direct communications and back and forth. Obviously that's simplified. That was dozens of emails and phone calls and us working as a mediator of sorts. But painting both county planning and the business interests with an even light, right?
Yeah, thanks for all that. And I met with the CEO, president of the UPC, and I will tell you, none of that ever became public record. I tried very much to connect him with other businesses that were aviation related. It is a premier company, and it can become a hub for attracting other companies and amplifying and leveraging other like businesses. I mean, so that's the connectivity that we're missing here on county staff to be able to attract others or enlarge some of our local businesses that could be associated with UPC. So those are the challenges. I get it, but we need to get some solutions.
There are two main areas for opportunity. If I may, just 30 seconds. In terms of schools, We anticipate that there could be over 2,500 mechatronics jobs coming online, and our capacity at Clark County or at Clark College is really producing less than 100 a year. So that is an area where K through 12 and up through junior college and WSU Vancouver can be turning on all cylinders, and we will have jobs and positions for those people. The other area where we see a ton of opportunity is with financial match, and with the Inflation Reduction Act and the CHIPS and Science Act, a lot of the notices of funding opportunity are coming out saying, where is the state, local, or city match? And we have to come up with creative solutions because of the public gift of funds mandate in Washington state. But I do believe that there are creative solutions to be had that will help us leverage more money here in those high-tech industries.
Thank you, Jen. And I know that this is an excellent discussion for council to be part of. And perhaps we should continue this in a different format in the future, because it's clear that the council is hungry for this information from you. I do believe that at this point, though, we're going beyond the agenda item per se, which is for us to make a recommendation on the ADO. So with that, I will ask that we are moving on. And Jen, we thank you very, very much for the representation that you bring to CREDC, and thank you for being here with us today. We wish you the best.
Thank you for having me.
Bye-bye. We now turn to item 3.2 on the agenda, which is about the security fencing. Kathleen?
Yes, thank you. So I'm first going to bring up the map that has some drawings on there of potential fencing, and then we'll pull up the kind of like a time frame discussion. So before you is just our campus down here, the block. Well, it was right before you. There you go. That is around, so the entire block down on the other side of the State Patrol Crime Lab, I believe. And then this encompasses CRESA, the PSC, the parking garage, the site of elections, and our medical examiner office. The yellow represented here would be the outline of the potential fence that could be put in. Both State Patrol and CRESA were looking at doing fencing for their facilities, so they will actually contribute some funding if this is something council wants to move forward with. And then out front, I know from my discussions with council on this, this is showing that the courtyard out front is not enclosed, so where the gazebo is, but that is something that as a direction from council, if the fencing is something you want to look at moving forward, and if so, do you want to include the courtyard or keep it back on the building? Is there any questions just on the map part? I can state the little bluish marks are gates that would, most of them would slide open to allow cars to enter and leave, and there are also man gates around the perimeter as required.
Yes, Kathleen, I'd like to hear us just kind of back up just one notch so that we can catch a little bit more clearly the context of this discussion. We're talking about a security fence. Why? And in fact, one of our commanders may be in the hearing room today. If he wishes to speak on that subject as well, I would invite him to add in his thoughts. But the question remains, why are we talking about a security fence?
So I'll, if you could pull up the other document just so that we have that moving forward. But yes, so this was brought up specifically regarding some crime or those who are unhoused sleeping in the garage. There is a review going on right now, which Amber can elaborate on, but there are also some, crimes we're seeing, people using drugs, setting fires, breaking windows within our parking garage and also out front. I know staff have also brought up potential, like they're nervous, don't feel safe. We do have at least one individual that's becoming more volatile over the last few weeks. And has been approaching staff, vehicles, and others. So this is And I'll turn over to Amber to talk about the policy piece that's being worked on right now, which I do think personally, and I know I've talked to the sheriff about this, the policy piece is a little separate than the crimes, because I don't think there's anything that's preventing citations or the sheriff's or Vancouver PD to show up when there is a crime being committed. Amber, do you want to?
Chair, if I may add to that, and I know Commander Barsness is in the room, so he can definitely come up to the area up here and join us in this conversation. So the fencing component came up twofold. One, with the issues that Kathleen's mentioning. Second is our fleet. Our fleet is in the back area of the fencing. If you can bring up the map, Rebecca, again, please, on that. The fleet is in the back area between the Washington State Crime Lab and the parking garage. So over the last, since I've been in this position since June, I've been collecting data on the loss that we've had in our parking area. So we've had Cadillac converters stolen off of our fleet. We've had fuel siphoned from our vehicles. We've had multiple things happen to the fuel pump that's in between that area. We've had our electronic, our car chargers, our electronic chargers stolen off of the PSC. As we go forward in the electric car industry with the fleet, we'll be having to add chargers for our fleet back there in the parking area. Those can range anywhere from 15 grand all the way up to the fast chargers, which are 50. So if those are stolen off of our area in the back, which we have no protection around our facility, that starts to be very costly. The third thing I'll add to that is the biohazard and the trash that our Parks Department and our facilities clean up on a daily basis. If our facility is enclosed where the yellow lines are proposed, that cuts down on the overnight trash and camping that goes on in our parking facility. We have staff time that spend up to from 7 a.m. in the morning to 10 a.m. cleaning up all the trash and biohazard that they're coming across in our campus. So that's the pieces I will add from the fleet perspective, the staffing perspective. We've been collecting staff complaints and what Kathleen had mentioned, the risk that is involved to our overnight staff. And what I mean by that is folks that are in the jail, the Washington State Crime Lab, the medical examiner's office that are here 24-hour, they're a late night shift. We don't have CCSO present at the campus at that time. So I can hand that over to Commander Barsness to talk a little bit about that. But that's the pieces I will add from the data collection that we've done since June.
Thank you. My name is Todd Barsness. I'm the Administrative Commander for the Clark County Sheriff's Office. I'm here to support County Manager Otto's plan for this fencing. The county campus obviously is a significant concern, safety for our employees and the welfare for the public that has business down here on a daily basis. And viewing this map, it is definitely a step in the right direction to providing a physical barrier and control points for access to this building. I would point out that although this fencing project is, as I said, it's a wonderful step forward. There are also multiple other buildings located on this footprint that have staff, such as the sheriff's records and jail records staff that work around the clock, and members of the staff of the courthouse that are here all hours of the day and the night. I'd like to emphasize that I think any comprehensive plan would need to include similar type of fencing around those facilities. The jail, for example, is the only correctional facility that I am aware of that does not have a physical barrier between the public and the facility itself. But I'm here to obviously support any steps and any partnership the Sheriff's Office can create to help solve this problem, answer any questions you may have.
Chair, can I add one more thing to Commander's comments? So we met with the jail RFP architects yesterday, so we are addressing the fencing part of the jail when we asked for the remodel of the jail, so we'll be addressing those concerns. I did speak with some of the judges last week for the courthouse, and we recognize the needs that are around the courthouse as well, talking about what the commander just mentioned. most of the JAs and the staff for the courthouse also park at the PSC. So we have most of our staff parks in that area, minus the jail records and the logistics staff that are on this side over here. So we recognize this is the bulk of the staff. This is not everybody, but addressing this concern will get us one step forward to securing our campus in a physical standpoint, not addressing the enforcement or the education side of things, but the physical side.
Kathleen, do you have anything to add before we ask council for questions?
If you could pull up the other document. So we are still trying to get some cost estimates, but it can cost anywhere from $600,000 to $800,000 for the fencing. And this just kind of provides, based on today's direction from council, is looking if, one, do you want to move forward with this? And two, if so, the perimeters, do you have any change or suggestion for the front of that? And then we certainly would have to, the finance team and facilities and purchasing will be part of that discussion if there is direction from council to look at our funding options, which mostly is going to be ARPA or our maintenance facilities reserve fund. And then this could come before council as early as the 18th of this month, knowing that we would still have to include the technical piece during a budget process.
Council, do you have questions or comments?
I have lots. If I may
I'll
start, and
with
I know
one.
it's almost lunchtime, that I assume we're going to miss once again. So first and foremost, there's so many issues here. I want to provide a secure, safe environment for staff. So I think some fencing of parking areas leading to workspace is essential and called for. We have security concerns in the particular court area, jail. So so I am in favor of looking at that. I don't know if $800,000 is I may want to scale that back a bit and just look a little bit with a laser view of what do we need so someone can come to work, park, and come and go at the end of the day safely. The real issue here is a lack of law enforcement. This kind of reared its ugly head the other day with our ECHO meeting when Jamie Spinelli publicly announced that the city had suspended their illegal camping ordinance. I have subsequently found out that that's not true. I spoke with the mayor and others, and there was no process where that was accomplished or done. But what that was in conjunction with was a presentation by the HART team. You will not see the HART team around our building. And we occasionally see some sheriffs, but there is no constant law enforcement presence. And the HART team is, I'm trying to encourage our sheriff's department to build its own HART team because we need outreach. But the bottom line is we're not enforcing our laws. And no, we're not criminalizing homelessness. But there are crimes being committed. You can walk right now and you'll see the poop hanging, dripping down the side of our building. Years ago, our former manager wanted to remove bushes because they were pooping in the bushes. That was the wrong answer, but it happened. We've removed almost every bench out front. So now it's not much of an inviting environment for lunch for our staff or visitors coming to the courthouse or the public service building. We have arsons, especially during the cold months. You can walk around and see all the burn marks against the building. We had an incident where there was a fire right alongside the building, significant fire, that broke the window, warped the frame. I don't know how much we invested in fixing all that. When I came across it, the perpetrators were still there, laying there with all their drug paraphernalia around them. We just have no enforcement. And these are, arson's a felony. The theft of all of our charging station material? I don't know, the laws keep changing and decriminalizing theft for some reason. But the place is a mess. And we have people that are passed out at any given time. You don't even know if they're alive, or barely alive, or have OD'd, or need immediate medical assistance. Whatever happened to welfare checks? Our own private security has no role in this. They have told me that over and over again. The best they can do is report incidents to their supervisor. They're essentially not doing anything outside the building. So this is first and foremost a law enforcement issue with littering, public safety and health. These are issues that we need to focus on. Just putting a fence around the perimeter is a poor optic, and it's an expensive one. And, I hate to equate this, but I did some work in Afghanistan trying to build courthouses when we were still there. And we thought of basically, because of ISIS and the Taliban, because they thought all law was illegal, of basically building a wall around all the courthouses and public service buildings so people could literally live inside this enclave so they could provide public services without being shot out or bombed. This isn't quite on that scale, but, I don't think the answer is to fence off the homeless people. What we need to do is enforce existing laws. So that's really what my focus would be, other than providing the security that the courthouse and jail needs and our staff needs to park safely and coming in and out of the building. I would just make this other comment because the other meeting we had, I always try to walk around the building and walk in the front door. I gagged at the smell. It was just rancid urine all over the front area of our doors. And you literally had to hold your breath just to come in the building. And I asked security, did you notice that? Oh, yes, we did. Have you reported it? Oh, we can't, we have to go to a supervisor. And I said, well, did you do that? We're constantly cleaning. How much are we spending on cleaning? We just,
And I would say
3 months ago, power washed the entire side of the building. Within 1 week, it was destroyed again. We just did it again, and it's already destroyed again.
Yeah, the staff can't keep up with the cleaning because if you walk down there now, it doesn't look like it's been touched. There's stickers, graffiti, everything on the windows and doors.
Yeah. So just one other comment, because we, outreach. We're trying to, and I've been trying over the number of years to increase our capacity for outreach and services for the homeless, and we are making progress in that regard. We are spending a lot of money, as is Vancouver, all of our providers out there. And we were supposed to have regular visits of outreach workers here, which, again, a heart-like team with law enforcement would be optimal. I have yet to ever see anyone from Council for the Homeless or any of the outreach working with our homeless that are out there. I'm no doubt they are, because I'm not doing 24/7 surveillance of the building, but I'm out there pretty frequently. I have yet to see regular visits, and when I talk to the homeless and say, who has contacted you, who has offered you help, the universal answer is, I don't want any help, or no one's contacted me. And so we need to focus and get a presence here to enforce the laws, and then it would minimize all of these impacts that are causing us to want to fence off the entirety of the property. Well, those are my general comments.
Commander, can I talk about the cost for the fencing piece, and then I'll hand it over to you, and you can talk about the law enforcement side.
Go ahead.
So the costing piece, we first started with the garage to just do the PSC fencing around the garage. The engineering of our garage is the way it's laid out with all the different gates we'd have to put in, the stairwells, the overall structure of the garage. It's nearly impossible, and the cost would probably be double of what we would have around the facility. So that we did look at that, Councilor Beverly, so I want you to know that we were exhausting all those avenues before we looked at the campus as a whole. And then when you're looking at CRESA and Washington State Patrol also wanting to add in, it does decrease the piece. And looking at fencing, that is, I've been in design of courthouses, you know, in Oregon, and looking at balancing the aesthetics of your facility, making it inviting to the public, and also keeping it secure. So we're looking at fencing options that doesn't look institutional. It doesn't look like we're putting, you know, razor wire around our facility to make it kind of your example of what you experience. So we're looking at those pieces. So it's a balancing act of making it, this is a civic center. This is our core. This is our courthouse. This is our we want to be able to have it inviting in front, you know, eventually get vendors into the courtyard, food trucks back again, those type of things to get support to our community. So I know that that's, we looked at the parking garage and that was not an option for us to be able to, and it doesn't address the fleet issue, because Vancouver has a presence, but they're not here on our campus, you know, overnight. The CCSO's here, you know, during the week, but they're not here overnight. That protects part of our fleet as well, and the cost that you mentioned for all the damage.
The 800,000, is that for something other than a chain link fence, something that looks nice? Okay.
Yeah.
And facilities told me the bulk of that is the gates that are required more than the fencing.
And was there another comment there?
The opportunity to address some of the comments you were making, and I appreciate the fact that you're bringing that forward. I agree with you. A fence is not a solution, but I think a fence is a part of a holistic approach to problem solving. And I would echo what was said at the opening of this session, that there's a very distinct difference between responding to a 911 call where a crime has been committed and a different type of proactive campus response. The 911 call, you know, dispatch has a very expensive, elaborate, and wonderful computer system that will dispatch deputies and officers based off of GPS location. And they will send help when there's a 911 call. And every time there has been a 911 call, the Sheriff's Office for Vancouver has responded, and we take that call seriously. We take it the same way we would take a call for service in the county. If we can find suspects and arrest them or cite them, we will. The other side of that coin is the presence that you're talking about. We do have deputies assigned to the campus, but our campus unit is now divided between a lot of their tasks. Starting in January, they had to take over the process of extraditions for the Sheriff's Office, which has taken up a huge amount of time and effort on the part of our campus unit to facilitate these extraditions. But we typically have 2 deputies assigned to the campus Monday through Friday. They also are in the courthouse serving the judges with security and high-profile cases, as well as trying to be a presence on the county campus. One of the challenges that we have stems from some of the legislative updates of 2021 in the police reform laws. The Washington State Legislature has decided that the only common factor in all law enforcement use of force scenarios is law enforcement. So they have put in statute the fact, and I'll refer to House Bill 1310, when it talks about options for using force, they have stated, and I'm reading directly from the statute, leaving the area if there is no threat of imminent harm and no crime has been committed, is being committed, or is about to be committed. So what the legislature has told us is that unless there's a specific governmental interest, we have a duty to leave the area. It doesn't mean that we can't make social contacts and try to work and offer those services, but as you yourself said, the majority of the subjects that we encounter day to day on the campus have refused those services multiple times. They know now that we don't have teeth to enforce these laws and we can't do anything about it. So I would draw that line between the 911 call for service and this campus presence, because we are very, very restricted on what we can do when it comes to working with the homeless population here on the campus.
I'll just add one item to our policy meeting that we had last week with the team chair, if I may.
Go ahead.
So we are moving forward to draft an ordinance that's similar to our parks that will be our downtown campus. And we'll be getting that to legal for their review to make sure it fits all the criteria. But Chief McCabe is working on that with me and Kevin Tyler, who drafted some of the ordinances for our parks back in the day when we first got those going. So we have a standard operating procedure. We've been working on that with the group. And part of your point, Councilor Mephiji, when parks engages CCSO, they say, we've contacted Council for the Homeless. This is our checklist of what we've done to engage services. Now we need presence, and enforce our ordinance. So we will be bringing that forward to Council. So there is movement on that side, but as we are discussing the fencing today, that's just a physical security piece that we can help in the after hours when we don't have the outreach and the education and enforcement going on the campus.
I would just make this comment in support of moving forward as you asked Kathleen whether or not council supports that. And I think I would like to start with the words that the commander used of holistic problem solving. That is precisely the way that I see this. Furthermore, I see this not as a homeless issue, as a safety issue. This deals with the safety of the public, of our employees, our visitors, people who come into the building expecting to be in a safe environment. So with a holistic problem solving and a emphasis on safety, why have a physical barrier? It's not because that's the answer. It's because it is a part of the holistic approach. There are several legs and arms to this thing. I don't know where it starts. Maybe with the prosecuting attorney. I don't know. But someone in that office agrees that we can act. Not that we have to think about it or that we have to get some kind of a permit. No, but that we can act when there is a safety issue. That is an important piece. And another important piece that we have said again and again is that of law enforcement. It's not the only piece, but it is a critical piece to having that safe environment. I know that if I felt unsafe in our parking garage, I would want the availability of law enforcement, because that is one very important piece, in my judgment, of the holistic approach to solving this issue. And the last one that I turn to at this time is the physical barrier. Without a physical barrier, our building and parking garage and the surrounding buildings are just amorphous. There is just so much that is open, so much that is available to someone who really doesn't have goodwill in mind. And that is a reason for having the physical barrier. And we have seen the demonstration of that. Amber, when you started your remarks, you stated it, unfortunately, all too well, about the many violations that we have had, where a physical barrier would have gone a long way in stopping or arresting that problem before it ever even started. So anyway, those are the reasons, some of them, why I do support the action that you're proposing, Kathleen.
Thank you, Chair. Just one comment. Yes, I think we all agree safety of our employees and those visiting here is number one. I also want to be mindful that during the day, all the gates will be open. So when the public is coming in and when employees are here, the barrier isn't secure. And I also know that some of the individuals who work in the courts who park in our garage, even with the barrier, they're going to have to walk across the street to the courthouse. And I I don't anticipate that those who are doing crimes right now in our parking garage are going to leave our area unless there is additional enforcement. So I don't want to put I just want to make sure that we all understand that, during the day, all of those gates around the fencing will be open to allow the public and staff to come in and out.
That's why this is a three-legged stool, I'm convinced. It is more than just the secure fencing. It includes that, but it is more than that, because without the law enforcement piece, it isn't complete.
Chair, may I?
Yes, go ahead.
So I am frustrated beyond all frustration by this conversation. And the reason being is here we're talking about a barrier around our facility to keep us safe. And to me, that is just sending a message to the public that if they want to keep themselves safe, they're going to have to create a barrier around their property as well. We are not talking about the problem in and of itself, and that is that there is not enough shelter space for individuals to be able to not live on the streets. If we have enough shelter space available, this is a moot problem. Martin versus Boise is taken care of. We can enforce and not allow people to camp outdoors because there is that space available for them. It's over $400,000 to build a unit that will house somebody. And we have over 625 people in the county that are currently outside. That is $250 million. When are we going to get that? It's not going to happen. And so we need to really start talking about shelter space in our county and increasing it. The outreach work is a critical piece of it, but you can have people go and reach out to these individuals as much as you want, but until they have stability in their lives, nothing's going to change. Nothing's going to happen. It's not going to be productive. So, and again, I see a flaw in this, that we're still going to require enforcement in order for this to work, even if we have a fence, because people can come in during the day. We are going to have a physical presence to require them to leave every single day. So I'm very frustrated. I feel like we should be working with the City of Vancouver more on this issue because this is their jurisdiction. The Safe State community is going to be opening within 2 to 3 months, which is going to include at least the front area of our public facilities center in that buffer, where now there will be a city ban on camping in that area. So there needs to be more coordinated effort. I feel like we would be better served by having an agreement with VPD to facilitate that type of activity, or a private security agency. And we need to start talking about shelter space, because we are not going to get anywhere with this problem. It's just going to continue to get worse, and we're not going to help anybody improve their lives until we have that space. So it's a matter of priority. And I think we are looking at this as a Band-Aid on the wound, as opposed to looking at what caused the wound to begin with. So I'm not supportive of this, because I don't think that it's going to work without a significant amount of extra resources to patrol and to enforce anyway. And it sets a precedent for the community that I don't think is a positive one. And it's kicking the can down the road. If we want our facility to be a safe one, then we need to provide a community where it's safe, not putting a shield and a fence around it to force that safety.
So, Madam Chair, I do support the initiative, like you said, and there's some false narratives that we just heard. First, Boise doesn't require or prevent the enforcement of existing laws, from arson to littering to vandalism to theft. Boise doesn't have anything to say about that, nor do we have to have a shelter space, and we've been talking about it for years and have been investing in shelter space for years. We have vastly grown the amount of shelter space and behavioral health supported space. It is a false narrative to say we have to have a shelter space for every single homeless person in the county before we can have a meeting with those that are trespassing on our property. And the reality is those around our property and in these encampments are offered shelter space and they refuse it. That's a reality. And it's a false narrative to say that we have to have $250 million of shelter space available for every single person in Clark County. So I am supportive of moving forward. It is, as you've termed it and commanders termed it, holistic. We need to do all of it. I was just trying to emphasize the law enforcement portion of it. We need to have more of a presence. You can have help, as you said, friendly contact. We used to call them health and welfare checks, especially for those that look like they're not living. They look like they're in distress. Do you need, that's what I say to each and every one who's passed out in a blanket around the building. Hi, are you okay? Do you need help? And, you know, I'd like to see law enforcement in uniform doing that constantly. Anyway, so I support, Madam Chair, the movement to go forward, and a lot of this can be attributed to the pandemic and the increase in pressure here. So I think we have ARPA funds that we can probably reallocate to this project, and as long as it's not a chain link fence.
Chair?
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you. I guess I'm not ready to move forward with this. I think there's more information I would need, because this is a complex issue, it's multifaceted. And, you know, if a comprehensive approach is needed, I don't want to make a decision on one piece of that comprehensive approach. I would want to understand all of the pieces and how they work together. For me, it would be helpful to maybe have some options of what things would look like. Maybe the jail or the courthouse has certain needs. I am concerned about the look and the message to the public. And, you know, I want it to be a welcoming place. What would it cost to have overnight security that was adequate to take care of the problem? If we're looking at spending $800,000, you know, maybe we could employ some people. So law enforcement services that might be available. And I know it takes time to really, as I understand the outreach to people who are living outdoors, is that it takes time to build trust. And, you know, I think solving what I've read in the Columbian recently is solving the homeless problem. You need to have patience. So I think we need to look at all of these things. And if there is a need for certain fencing, how can that be minimized? The overnight security and the availability of services and law enforcement for when criminal activity is actually happening.
Councilor Marshall, can I address a couple of those questions that you brought up? So as we've been looking at this for the last 4 months, it is a holistic look that we have all the partners at the table of how do we come together with all of our knowledge, and how do we have, you know, CCSO, legal, the county management office, risk, safety, all the folks that we have on our policy team, parks, to address this issue. And to your point, Councilor Young, of looking at it from not enough shelter space. The deputies on the campus, I cannot say enough good things about Deputy Rogan and Deputy Pazan of how the outreach happens on a daily basis with folks around our facility. I know Councilor Medviji goes out and talks to people, but they know everybody by name, and they've been engaging since I've been on the campus since June with these folks. And we have the same players. They're refusing service. They're not going into service. We don't have enough mental health. We had a very specific incident that I was part of last week where I was chased in the parking garage by someone, and the deputy responded, but we have no crisis available for that person. So there is a complexity to this. But as we're looking at cost and looking at what we're paying for cleanup of our facility, for our fleet, for all the pieces that we have, there's not enough law enforcement to go around in our downtown, whether it's VPD or CCSO, to address that overnight. I mean, there just isn't. That's the complexity that we're in. And I want to also say to the enforcement side, Chief McCabe said something really, really it hit me last week in our policy meeting when he was talking about enforcement. I think what gets lost in that, it's not just citing or arresting someone, it's the education piece of it. And he said that enforcement is always not just writing a ticket. It's the contact that we make with people out in the community and the education that takes place. So while I think that, and I know I've been in part of a lot of these designs to make sure things don't look like we're confining, but it's not just the safety piece, it's really protecting our facility, and there is not enough law enforcement in our community to go around. So I think we have to look at this from a, as Commander spoke and Chair spoke, the holistic approach to physical security is only a component of what we are trying to do with this overall problem. And it's a livability issue, and we know that. And it's a drug issue, it's a behavioral health issue, it's a mental health issue, it's shelter, it's housing, it's everything that's the complexity in our community, but we can't just do nothing. And I think that's why we brought this forward with our first step of the fencing, is looking at how we can affect that.
And so I want to just address something that Sue said, because I think we are in agreement. I mean, we're not finalizing an architectural plan that's going to cost $800,000 today. I mean, what we're moving forward is what you suggested. I need to see options. And so that comes up during the process. Okay, move forward. Let's see what we can do. What's it really going to cost? And as we do all the other pieces from the PA's office to Council for the Homeless, you know, all of the above. And so I'm hoping not to just put a stumbling block, because we need action to move forward. And as we move forward, you'll see the options before, and you'll get a chance to approve them. So I just wanted to add that, because otherwise we have 2-2, and we're not going to make any headway today until we can reconsider it when we have 5.
Chair?
Go ahead.
So first of all, I would appreciate it if we could discontinue some of the terms that are mentioned. False narrative, conflict of interest, they don't belong at the dais. They don't produce a conducive, a productive environment, a collaborative, workable environment. So I would appreciate if we would discontinue the use of terms such as that. With that having been said, when somebody comes and attempts to do outreach, or if there is a law enforcement request and they reach that individual and there is not an open shelter space, they cannot move them. And that is the narrative. So again, until we have shelter space, mental health beds available, this is a problem that is not going to go away. And so I can appreciate the conversation about ensuring that our staff are safe. That is important and critical. I don't see this as a method that's going to ensure that. Again, we need to have resources that the sheriff in his email said are not available to him to provide that support here. I also, and from an engineering perspective, I don't know how we could put a gate on Mill Plain, because it would cause traffic to stop, you know, to wait for that gate to open.
It slides to open, and it will be open during normal business.
Okay, so it stays open all the time?
Yeah.
Okay. But I just, you know, whatever we do in this situation, I just hope that we as a council will start having conversation workshops, bringing people in to help us make better policy. Because what we're doing right now is, it's not working. Some of it is working, but it's not enough, because the problem continues to get worse. And the longer people are unhoused, the longer they're in an environment that's chaotic and that's very destructive for an individual. And we've got to get them off of the streets. And yes, there are some people that will not want to engage, but eventually you will get to that point where you do have free beds. And at that point, people will not have the choice. Either they go into a provided shelter space, or there is community court, whatever the path needs to take place at that time. But I sure hope that we as a council will begin having policy conversations on this.
We've been doing that
I would like to
forever.
address that.
Madam Chair, I just want to respond,
Go
because,
ahead.
you know, I'm sorry I use the word false narrative, although that's exactly what it is. In fact, what we have transients that come up here and say, I'm on the West Coast because I know you won't hassle me because of Boise. It's not true. It's a misunderstanding of the law that a lot of cities have capitulated to. Suspending an illegal camping ordinance is an example of capitulation. So these are important discussions because it then sets the stage for the PA to start enforcing tickets that do get written for other reasons. No one's going to be arrested for sleeping on the sidewalk. It's just, that's criminalization of homelessness. That's what Boise really stood for. Anyway, so I'm sorry if I may have struck a nerve, but I think it's just, they are false narratives out in the community that's preventing law enforcement from doing their job, as well as what the legislature has done to you here in Washington State. That hopefully will
To extend
swing
what
back eventually.
Councilor Medvigi said, because I think that you were on the right track there. Maybe not with that particular word choice, but on the right track conceptually. You said, I think that we are in general in the same space. And I actually concur with that. We're not ensuring safety. Of course not. That's not something that anybody can do, let alone a council. But we can certainly work toward it by having the holistic approach to problem solving that we're talking about. And as far as the shelter space and working with the city, absolutely. We are having those discussions. We are having those expenditures. And if you don't really realize as a member of the public how much is being expended in that regard, perhaps we should give an update on those figures because it is extensive and it is an extension of, and an appropriate one, of the conversations that we're having now, not just with the city of Vancouver, but with other cities when it comes to those particular questions. And as far as needing more information, Councilor Marshall, I am with you on that. I would not vote today to have a fence put in that is of the design that Kathleen Otto or anybody else has before them. There may be a better design. We need more information about all of the different things that feed into the solution. And that's what we need to be doing, not stopping our action to just wait until more information falls in our lap, right? But to be actively pursuing it so that we can make better decisions based on that information that we find. So I think that in most ways, we are saying some very similar things. And again, that's a large part of the reason why I support our moving ahead with getting more information at this point so that we can see what would be entailed with this part of a solution. We may or may not decide that that would be an appropriate part, but if we have the information, we can at least make an informed decision. And that's what I would encourage us to do at this point in time. I don't know if there are other comments from council.
Just a couple.
Yes, go ahead.
I would like that additional information to include the unmet need in terms of shelter, space, deputies, independent security, just what are all of the alternatives to address the problem? And I'd also like to understand a little of the background. Is this COVID related? Is it an economic, social issue? How did we get to this place? Because I think looking back and understanding the history that led us to here can maybe help lead us out of it. And if there are, and if there were fencing At what point does the fencing ever become removed if situations improve? You know, I just wonder about all of that.
So we can research that. I can share, you know, yes, some of it could be COVID, but I also say 5-6 years ago, we had significantly more people camping around the campus than we do now, but the individuals now have a higher, they're more volatile, whether it's from drugs or mental health. So it's a different population than what we saw 5 or 6 years ago. But we can, you know, get some other information on that. So am I hearing a majority of the council?
Yeah, so Madam Chair, it looks like we're not going to make progress unless we have
No,
five
no, no, no,
councilors
no. I
here.
think that's
So-
not where we are.
Okay, well, you can hope springs eternal, but what I just heard Sue Marshall, she wants information that the whole world is struggling with, what the whole United States is struggling with. Yeah, we don't have enough homes, and we don't have enough mental health beds, and we don't have enough detox.
But we do
You know,
have that information. And I've heard it at Echo from time to time. So I know that you are probably even more aware of it than most. But Kathleen, you had just started to say something. I'd like to hear what that was going to be.
No, I just was going to confirm if we have the majority of the council that is supportive in getting the additional information requested and continuing the dialogue and bring it back to council at a future council time.
Yeah, and including options.
Yes.
I'll support that.
Okay, thank you. I think this has concluded this item, Chair.
Very good. So now we move to 3.3, a letter regarding the 179th. And that again is you, County
Yes,
Manager.
so, and this is, I think it was discussed a little bit at your legislative meeting on Monday with our lobbyist, but they did send down a draft letter regarding 179th that they would like us to send to a couple senators and representatives. Just thanking them for understanding the importance of investments made in our transportation budget and also asking them to restore the Connecting Washington schedule for I-5 179th interchange project. So I just want to make sure that we've got, that council has opportunity to discuss this so that we can move forward and hopefully send this up.
I support the letter going forward.
I do too.
I do too.
That was
Thank you.
entirely too fast. Let's go to councilor reports. Item 4, are there councilor reports?
Chair, I do have one item of which the full council is aware. I obtained a letter, and I'm pretty sure that staff had obtained it. I'm not sure where it's been sent to, but I know that we have all seen it. A letter from the city of, or not city of Ridgefield, but the Ridgefield School District, and they're in process of purchasing some property that they need for a new school. And they are currently, just real quick to sum it up, they're currently under contract to purchase, but from my understanding, they're in a feasibility clause. So, and that is about to expire on, I believe, the 14th of April, which at that time means that the owner of the property will pursue a purchase and sale agreement with most likely a developer in the community. And they have searched for a long time for this property. And from my understanding, in order for them to prove the removal of that feasibility clause and continue to stay under contract, they have to have a reasonable assurance of of a plan that we have here at the county level that has to do with roads. So there's in the plan, there was a road that would go through and divide that parcel into two properties. It won't work for them as it was drawn. There's been some conversation from staff, and perhaps Kathleen, you can update us on that. And then I'm looking for a mechanism that we might be able to help them ensure the process to where they can continue on and be able to purchase that property eventually.
I can certainly, and I sent this to council as well, and I see our Public Works Director is on as well, but just as a high-level summary that Ken did provide, there is analysis that hasn't been done with regards to this yet for access management and circulation plan. There hasn't been that technical study to confirm if it's reasonable on the east side of Northeast 29th. And there also would need a change in the current access management and circulation plan and adopted by the council as changed. And this would have to occur during the July 19, 2023 hearing. And then it looks like that there's currently a binding site for this parcel that is in the application process as well. So if this were to move forward, we'd have to figure out what the next step is and potentially having them withdraw their application. And Ken, is there anything that's critical that I missed for this discussion?
No, I think you covered all the main points, Kathleen, and good afternoon, Council. I was hoping, as I'm sure you were, that I would be saying good morning, Council, at this point. I do have, I'm not sure if I can share screen, but a picture is worth probably 1,000 words just to show you exactly what we're trying to figure out. And I think having a solid commitment is a difficulty for us right now at this point, but I could show you why. And let me
Should be giving you the access.
see if this comes up here.
We see it.
Okay, very good. So the area that's in the blue cloud here is the site that the Ridgefield School District is considering. And you can see that orange line is kind of the road that they're considering with their preliminary site layout. And then the gold line, if you can see that there, is what we have on the current plan and is actually part of the current arterial atlas. So that would have to change. You know, staff is supportive certainly of the school's plan and the change, but what we haven't looked at is the effects on the other side of 29th Avenue to the east, because we would want to align our arterial at that intersection. And you can see just from the aerial that there are some homes there. In order to offset that intersection, this is really too close of spacing. So that would require some analysis, and whether or not we could cite another location for the arterial really hasn't been reviewed. So I have put in a request, and we're starting to look at that with our consultant for the access management plan, as well as our staff that would look at circulation and the closeness of those intersections. I think the timeline, I'll be honest, it's pretty difficult to say that we would have a confident answer for you. And then ultimately, council would have to decide if this is an update that you would want to make to the access management and circulation plan during that hearing in July to affect the change to not only the arterial atlas, but to the access management and circulation plan itself. So.
Hey, at Ridgefield, we're requesting a letter from us, no doubt, that would say that we were willing to make the change that they envisioned. We are not prepared to do that at this time. Should a letter state that is sent to them?
That's correct. I think it would be very difficult for us to say with confidence that we can make this change. It's not to say that we can't move through the analysis and see if this is possible, but there will be some consequences clearly to that alignment. And it's really the other side of 29th that's away from the school property that I would see as the main concern.
Thank you.
Chair?
Yes, go ahead.
Yes, Ken, I wonder if you could scroll a little so I can see this in the context of I-5 and 179th.
I certainly could, Councilor Marshall, if this were not just a screenshot that I made to draw on. But let me see if I can. And I'm not sure if you see the web version now. Is it zooming out?
That's good.
Or do I need to reshare that? So the school site would be right here, and here's the I-5 interchange.
Great, that's good. And then I have a question because I'm in the Richfield School District and I wasn't aware that they successfully passed a bond. I don't know that the financing is in order for this.
Yeah, and my understanding is that would yet need to happen, so.
Are they able to get that assurance without having the financing in place? I mean, I don't know that this solves a longer term issue.
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that. I know the urgency was certainly related to the fact that these sites that are large enough and configured to support a school are few and far between, and they've been looking for a site, and this seemed to fit the needs for their site plan and layout for the middle school.
Just in response to Councilor Marshall, I think that there probably are multiple things that still have to happen, but this is one of them that on April 14th will shut it down. So it's, this is, I guess, what I would say is an unfortunate situation. I don't know if we're going to be able to give them what they need, but we can certainly try as hard as we can. And I would suppose maybe between now and next week, if there's any further information that you could give us, we'd appreciate that update.
Yeah, I will certainly try to do that. Go ahead, Kathleen. Sorry.
So with one caution, I mean, we're kind of fast tracking a whole lot of processes that have been in place for designing arterials and 6-year transportation plan approval for prioritizing money. And so the caution is this: what if it was a church? What if it was a business? What if it was any other citizen saying, I have an opportunity for a land deal, but you've got to change your plan? You know, to jump through hoops in a couple of weeks, I think by you saying it's pretty difficult is a vast understatement, because it's just not how government runs. And even if we were commissioners and we ran the executive branch and said, do it, I don't think you would be able to do it within a couple of weeks. I mean, it's just, there's too many moving pieces, from long-range planning, midterm financial planning. I think this is just something we need to do your due diligence, but not jump through any particular hoops, because it would set a really bad precedent for all the other people out there that would want us to do it as well.
Kathleen,
Oh,
I'm sorry. I think she wanted to say something earlier.
Yeah, go ahead, Kathleen.
I guess one, I would want to know specifically what additional information, taking into consideration all of the other council decisions that have already been made, is more information going to change that council's decision on this? Because it will take staff time to get this done. With the access management plan, with the 179th, with the arterial atlas, those are all things that have been in the works for more than a year, and will take a lot to undo.
Yeah, so I do agree with Councilor Medvegy. I think that just from your conversation that there's too much to do. I don't know that in a week we could change anything per se, and I do agree that there is a component of fairness there. So I would say just whatever on your normal track of work, if you happen to have an update for us, let us know. But otherwise, you know, we've done as much as we can to try to help facilitate.
And I would just echo the normal track is we're not working on this. So if council
Understood.
Okay.
I won't
so,
expect an update
so
then.
Yeah, you don't need to do any other work on this. And I'm assuming I have at least your counselor saying that.
I agree with Kathleen.
Okay. Thank you.
And if I may, just to follow up with that is really what we've communicated to the representatives for the district in this process. And so I appreciate that, Council. Thank you.
Thank you, Ken. Any other counselor reports? Work session requests, I show none. Is that still correct? Policy issues, are there any to be discussed here?
No, not today. Thank you.
Okay, then it's time to move into executive session. We have 3 executive sessions that will total, 25 and 35?
40
About 40
minutes, Chair.
I'm sorry?
That's correct, Chair, 40 minutes.
40 minutes, and is there any after action, Leslie?
No after action, thank you.
Okay, very good. Well, council, I will see you shortly in executive session, and then we will be back at 12:28. How about 1:15? So we will be back to adjourn council time at 1:15. Thank you all, and see you in executive session.
Chair Barrowman has asked us to announce that the executive session will be extended for an additional 10 minutes and open session will reconvene at 1:25. Thank you. Hello, everybody. Chair Barrowman has again asked us to announce that the executive sessions are going to be extended for an additional 5 minutes, and open session will reconvene at 1:30. Thank you.
This is Wednesday, April 5, 2023. Council has completed some 2 work sessions. We have completed the majority of council time's agenda, went into 3 different executive sessions. And out of those executive sessions, 1, we have a report coming out in which, and we did not select a person to present this, so I'll start it and ask that our person who is county manager completes this, or perhaps Leslie Lopez, our PA. We have been discussing the possibility of what our options are relative to FDR, and that we would want to have a work session in that regard. What would you like to add to that?
Chair Barrowman, this is Leslie Lopez.
Go ahead, Leslie.
We can put something on the agenda for next week for a work session, just being careful not to discuss what we discussed in executive session. But it's my understanding that there will be a work session next week, a work session request next week. Thank you.
Is there anything else to add? Hearing nothing, in that event, we are back in council time for the purpose of adjourning. So this meeting is adjourned.